Despite being the pinnacle of intelligent characters, like Yagami's intellect is often misunderstood by many. This is quite ironic considering the first half of that note mainly focuses on the battle between Light and L, during which Light demonstrates many great feats. Yet people still like to believe otherwise, dismissing his strategies as a whole instead of acknowledging the meticulous planning behind them. This argument, which you might have heard, basically tries to convey the point that Light wasn't as smart as the series portrays him to be. Throughout the entire manga, Light laid out many traps for his opponent, many counters against them, and many plans that would essentially guarantee his victory. But some argue that everything Light did had a very low chance of success. Any wrong move would have turned the tables against him. Even though that didn't happen, they still argue that he only succeeded because of favorable timing and circumstances. Even Memory Loss Plan, which was the best planning feat in the entire series, also has many flaws. Another similar point to this is that, like Yagami, has a very poor control over his emotions, as well as controlling the emotions of others. This begs the question, is like Yagami even smart to begin with? Well, let's find out. The fatal trap is one of those moments that leads many to believe that Light has a poor control over his emotion. This assumption is understandable because Light has shown several weaknesses. Although the trap wasn't that simple, Light failed to consider the possibility that it might be a trap and fell for it. Because of this, it's easy to think that Light lacks composure. But there's a problem. We are ignoring several important factors here. One of which is that this scene happened at the very beginning of the series, specifically in Chapter 2. This means Light had plenty of room to grow over the next 100 of chapters, which he did. The Light who fell for the trap was inexperienced, having just discovered a weapon that granted him immense power. At that time, he didn't even know L existed, let alone what L was capable of. This early version of Light didn't know how to handle complex situations and relied heavily on Death Note alone. The Light we see in later chapters is different. His composure improved significantly and he began to use both his intellect and the Death Note to achieve his goals. As we see multiple times throughout the series, Light having great control over his emotions. One example of this is in chapter 90 when L revealed himself to Light. In that situation, Light's greatest enemy was sitting right next to him. But Light knew that any wrong move could give L the evidence he needed to prove Light was Kira. Despite the pressure, Light managed his emotions, appearing perfectly normal and not giving L any clues about his reasoning. Light even complimented L on his work with a straight face. Remind you, this is the same Light who considers himself superior to everyone else, yet managed to compliment the person who not only poses the greatest threat to him, but also challenges his ideas directly. Light understood the seriousness of the situation, which is why he played defensively while not giving L any reason to suspect him further. Another example is when L captured Misa. Before this, when Misa met L, Light believed he had already won. No, he was fully confident in his victory because Misa had seen L's real name through the Shinigami eyes. Although Light sensed something was off based on L's reaction, he didn't expect that L would capture Misa without any evidence. That's why he still attempted to call Misa on both of her cell phones, but both times L answered and told Light face to face that Misa had been captured under the suspicion of being the second Kira. Instead of making any hasty decisions, even though he knew that Misa's capture meant Ram had every reason to kill him and that his life was in serious danger, Light kept calm, gathered his thoughts, and waited for Ram to return. After learning that Misa had given up the ownership of that note, Light came up with the memory loss plan, which is insane. Not just because he came up with a plan, but because of the plan he actually devised. Remember, it was 3 days after Misa gave up her ownership of the Death Note and Ram informed Light about it. This means under those 3 days, Light was constantly under pressure, fearing either Ram would kill him or Misa would reveal the truth to L. Despite this, he didn't make any hasty decisions. Instead, as soon as he had the necessary information, he came up with the memory loss plan, which required a lot of predictions and counters for the next 8 to 9 months. If Light's composure and mental fortitude were the same as when he fell for the fake L trap, Do you think he would have made the same decision here? The same Light who couldn't even think of one possibility back then is now considering many possible outcomes to formulate a plan, while constant pressure of dying or being caught. No, he wouldn't have. This means it was the Light in chapter 2 who lacked the composure, not the one we see later in the series. Was Raye Penber foolish for showing his FBI ID to Light during the bus hijacking incident? The information that Kira needs a name or a face to kill someone was already known. Yet Raye showed his ID to someone he was investigating under the suspicion of being Kira. This gave Light the opportunity not only to kill Raye, but also to kill other FBI agents through him. Hence, if Raye hadn't shown his FBI ID to Light, Light wouldn't had any way to kill Raye, let alone the other FBI agents through him. So Light got lucky that Raye was dumb enough to show his FBI ID to someone he was investigating under the suspicion of being Kira. Well, not exactly. You see, just like before, many major factors are being ignored here. Raye Penber was supposed to be an experienced FBI agent who had worked against people with actual criminal mindsets. From Raye's perspective, Light was nothing but a proper, well-mannered teenager with a bright future ahead of him. Raye was also aware of Light's background, so from Raye's point of view, Light didn't fit the profile of Kira. He watched him for days and concluded that it was impossible for Light to be Kira. He decided to check on him for one last day while he was there. Raye, who entered that bus, was already convinced that Light was not Kira and only followed him because it was his duty. He was most likely going to report back after that night. This means there was no Kira threat for him at that moment. Unlike the burglar, who was alive, standing there and threatening innocent civilians. From Raye's point of view, Light was the innocent civilian who was about to put his life in danger. Showing his FBI ID and proving he was trustworthy was the only thing Raye could have done to stop an innocent teenager from putting his life in danger to protect his girlfriend. Light made sure Raye believed he was just a normal teenager through his behavior and schedule while Raye was investigating him. After enough days had passed, Light put Raye in a situation where an innocent person would risk their life to save their girlfriend. Even though Light didn't know Raye was an FBI agent, he was still aware that Raye was someone working for the NPA. That's why Light chose a drug addict who had killed 3 people in the past to hijack the bus. Because Raye would be aware of the burglar and know that he was capable of killing people. From Raye's perspective, Light wouldn't be aware of this as Light made sure Raye would through his note. At this point in the story, the information that Kira can control his victims before their death or a Shinigami exists wasn't known. So Raye was thinking logically with the limited information he had. If Light were Kira, he wouldn't have killed the burglar when he showed up on the bus. But he didn't. This made Raye more confident in his reasoning that Light wasn't Kira, which is why he showed his FBI ID to him. Light didn't just get lucky, he carefully maneuvered the situation to his advantage. Raye showing his ID was the best solution for him to build trust and save an innocent life while he was on duty. Because from his point of view, there was no Kira threat aside from the burglar. So you can say that it's not that Raye was dumb, it's just that Light was too smart for him. Naomi's situation or fate was anything but luck. But wait, didn't Light happen to meet Naomi at the task force building by chance? Well, yes. In that moment, Light did get lucky. His father forgetting his stuff at home on the exact day Naomi tried to reach the task force, and Light arriving at the building at the perfect time while Naomi was trying to get in. That was indeed luck. But you know what's even more unlikely than Light meeting Naomi? The fact that she was the fiancée of Raye Penber. Out of all the agents Light killed, Raye was the only one he had direct contact with. Naomi was also a former FBI agent who somehow had worked with L, and she just happened to be in Japan at the time. All these factors played a major role in Naomi meeting Light. If one of these factors hadn't happened, Light wouldn't have met Naomi in the first place. So yes, Light did got lucky here, but that doesn't mean he relied solely on luck during the entire encounter, which I'll explain later. The point is, just because Light got lucky in this one instance doesn't mean the entire feat is invalid or based on luck. But anyway, Let's quickly go over the main points which were used by Light to gain Naomi trust. Firstly, Light begins by certainly establishing his credibility, introducing himself as Soichiro Yagami's son. This not only identifies him as the son of the detective Naomi is trying to reach, but also certainly boosts his own status in her eyes. This introduction is not just a simple revelation. He pretends not to know the security guard so that he can indirectly tell Naomi about his previous achievements, which essentially confirms that everything Light said was indeed true. By leveraging information he overheard during her conversation with the security guard, Light confirms that neither Naomi nor the security guard knows the task force whereabouts, giving him the upper hand in controlling the narrative. What follows is a series of deliberate maneuvers showcasing Light's ability to manipulate information and emotions. He uses his status as a tool, positioning himself as both a credible source and a helpful ally, which encouraged Naomi to lower her defense. This is not luck, but a sophisticated use of social proof, an understanding that people are more likely to trust those with perceived authority or expertise. Light also used selective disclosure, offering just enough information to keep Naomi engaged. White knew that the NPA building has cameras in it, so if he were to caught on camera talking to Naomi, it might be dangerous for him if Naomi were to die. That's why he positioned himself in a way that the camera wouldn't be able to tell whether he was talking to her or not. He also says he believes Kira has other ways of killing people to capture Naomi's interest, so she won't question him if he asks her to leave the building. This tactic not only captures Naomi's interest, but also certainly shifts the power dynamic, positioning Light as someone who knows more than he is letting on. This is another calculated move, designed to make Naomi follow his lead without any questions. After leaving the building, Light was reassured, because he believed the name Naomi gave him was her real name. In fact, it wasn't, which could be seen as reckless on Light's part because he didn't consider that possibility. However, given the information he had at the time, it was impossible for someone like Light to foresee a possibility like that. Let's dive into this a little more. When Light asked Naomi for a name, it was before he knew about her deductions, her relationship with Raye, or that she was a former FBI agent who had worked with L. Light learned this information during his conversation with Naomi, which took place after he had already asked for her name. The reason Naomi gave Light a fake name was that she knew how Kira's killing methods worked. But at the time, Light didn't know that Naomi was aware of this. It wasn't Light's recklessness that made him fail to consider the possibility of her lying, but rather his logical reasoning. Why would a normal woman like Naomi, who didn't work for the NPA, happen to have some conspiracy theories about Kira's method of killing, hide her name from someone who would be her best way into the NPA? What Light didn't know was that Naomi was Raye's fiancé, and Raye had told her that he had shown his FBI ID to someone, after which he died the same night. This made Naomi more cautious about revealing her real name. None of this information was available to Light, so he couldn't have predicted the possibility of her giving a fake name. As their conversation progressed, Light learned that Naomi's deductions were in fact correct, and she might be a bigger threat than he initially thought she was. She was withholding critical information, and it was only a matter of time before they caught Light. The situation was very risky, and any wrong move could make Naomi suspicious of him. White knew that anything he says to Naomi wouldn't be effective because she was well aware that Raye died solely because he revealed his name. Despite Naomi being cautious, she still gave White a lead, which was her determination, her strong mindset of putting Kira behind the bars. This became the weakness Light exploited. Naomi's desperate attempts to join the task force were easily manipulated by Light, who simply lied about working with them. He created a small but effective strategy. First, he lied about being a part of the task force, then he convinced Naomi to work with him on the case. Lastly, he asked her for some form of identification, which she gave without any hesitation. In the end, Light used the information he had to devise a lie that crushed Naomi.
So, if you don't mind my asking, why do you keep checking your watch?
Oh, well, I guess it's because I'm Kira.
While memory loss is an insane planning feat, it still gets many critiques focused on the element of luck. Since Light didn't have his Kira memories at most of the time, some argue that things might have not gone as planned. What if Light hadn't worn his watch? What if the task force didn't let him handle the Death Note? Or what if L didn't take Light when they caught Higuchi? Any small variation could have disrupted Light's plan to kill Higuchi and reclaim the ownership of his Death Note. But does this mean all of this is true? Well, not exactly. From early in the series, it's clear that there was distrust between L and the police, which Light was well aware of. L's distrust of the task force, whom he saw as inferior in intellect, led him to take charge of crucial tasks. Light understood this very well and anticipated that L would want to personally handle the most critical parts of the Kira investigation. He knew L wouldn't rely on the task force, which meant Light himself would stay involved. This awareness was the key in Light's prediction that L wouldn't leave him behind during critical moments. Light also predicted that as the new Kira began killing again, L would feel compelled to involve Light to better understand Kira's abilities. L's obsessive nature and personal sense of justice meant he would prioritize proving Kira's identity himself. Regardless of the pressure from the task force, Light foresaw that despite the team's growing doubts, L would still keep him close. As for the watch, Light himself stated in the manga that he knew himself well enough to be sure he continued wearing it. His attachment to the watch, a symbol of his pursuit of justice, wouldn't just change because he lost his Kira memories. When it came to capturing Higuchi, Light correctly predicted that L wouldn't object to him joining the operation, especially in such critical situation. Not only would the task force argue to include Light, but L's preference to keep Light nearby where he would watch his every move further ensured Light's involvement. So overall, Light's plan wasn't purely based on luck. It stemmed from his deep understanding of both his rival and himself, considering that he came up with this plan while he was cornered. It only highlights his emotional intelligence as well. But what if Light's analysis of L was wrong? What if there was someone in the task force that L fully trusted? The problem with these or most argument against ML is that they revolve around the endless of what ifs. What if this happened or what if that didn't? In reality, White himself admitted that he was prepared for any possible outcome. Just because someone adds a what if scenario doesn't mean the plan had a low chance of success. It only means the plan could have failed under those different circumstances. But it didn't and White succeeded, and that itself is a proof of his intellectual capabilities. So I'm wrapping up this video here, and I know there's still a lot more to cover that I haven't got into yet, but since this video is already quite long, I'll be addressing those points in a separate video. But before that, I just want to clarify that interpreting Light's feats as just luck is a narrow way of looking at things. Luck did play a role sometimes in the series, but that doesn't mean everything Light did was solely due to it. But anyways, if you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate if you give it a like. My friend and I put a lot of effort into making this and your support means a lot. I know there's still plenty I can improve on, so I'll hope you'll stick with me on this journey. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.